and just talk about some of the issues today that we're facing, which we've never, any of us have never faced before. So on the call, we've got Sissy. Y'all know, all of you know Sissy. Steve Jankwitz is also on the call in case we need him. He's our technology guy. So what I'd like to do is start with Todd. Todd, you're up in the upper right-hand corner of my screen. So what I'd like you to do is each one of you just sort of introduce yourself, and then we'll go around and then we'll start asking these questions that we submitted to you. And again, we can go off those questions. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. This is very, very informal. So Todd, you want to start?
Sure. Todd Clingman. I'm at North Cobb Christian School. That's in Cobb County, just north of Atlanta. We're about a 900 student school, started in 1983. I just finished my 13th year here, and my triplets, 2 girls and a boy, turned 17 years old today.
Oh. Wow.
That's terrific. Hey, Todd, tell them about your campaign.
So we're about 50% complete with a phase 1 of a new upper school building. It's about 47,000 square feet and about a $10 million project. And we were able to partner with J.F. Smith for the feasibility study and then the campaign. Wrapped up the campaign, maybe about 8 months ago. It all blends together, but we broke ground in November-ish of 2019, and we'll be done with our project about October 1st. We're dried in, so everything's moving along nicely. And we had a unique campaign in that we had a pretty sizable amount of gifts in kind, most of which are in the bag. As of yesterday, we had a large concrete pour. So sometimes those gifts in kind make you a little nervous, but everything's worked out really well. And had some good matching gifts from some corporations, some foundation gifts, obviously a lot of parent and grandparent gifts. So we were supposed to break ground in April, but we were able to break ground about 6 months early. So don't ask me if we would have broken ground had we waited till April. I won't answer that question.
Right. You know, I knew Todd when he was a headmaster at McKinney Christian School out in McKinney, Texas, years and years ago. We did a campaign out there for him then. So, Termy, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Termy Land. I'm head of school at Madison Original Academy in Madison, Mississippi, and I'm completing my 8th year here. 6 as a head of school. When I came,
That's hard to believe. That's hard to believe, Termy. You've been there 8 years.
It is, Jerry. You're right. My wife and I actually bought a house when we moved here. We've been in that house 8 years, as long as we've ever been in one house straight. and I think I'm going to have to stay there a good bit longer, Scott, because she says she's not leaving this house. But anyway, I came here I was hired to succeed the guy that had been the head of school here, and he retired after 20 years and just done a fantastic job. And he and I had a long relationship, so those 2 years worked well. So I've been head of school here now for 6, and just moved into a great opportunity. As I mentioned, the head of school before me had done a great job of just building everything, getting it to a certain level that allowed me to come in and to be able to continue to build upon that. Our enrollment's gone from 905 up to, we right now have 1,274 registered for next year. We're in an area where it's just, people are still building houses here even through the pandemic. So it's just an exciting time to be here at MRA. We did a campaign. We had over $2.5 million in pledges. We're actually over 2.6. Our goal was 2.5. We've collected a little over 2 million now, Sissy. So we're excited about that. And a little anxious this week because we have a couple of large pledges due this week. We've sent those reminders out, Jerry. We faithfully continue to do that even through the pandemic. I did that out of fear of you chastising me. So we've been able to continue to do that. We did some really great things with that. And $2.5 million for our school is a large amount because when I got here 8 years ago, they had never even done an annual fund. And this is the first professional capital campaign that we've done. We've totally redone our elementary and kindergarten playgrounds. It's been fantastic. We repurposed the old cafeteria into an elementary enrichment facility that is just fantastic. And we're now working on visitor bleachers and our our stadium, our football track and soccer stadium. We're renovating all of that. Done about $1.5 million worth of renovations there. That's really going to be great. So, and all of this was spurred on by our Catholic campaign.
So Termy and I we did a campaign with Termy, I guess 10 years ago at
10
Pillow
years
Academy.
ago.
Pillow
That's right.
Academy. So we that was a $3 million campaign, which was highly successful there at So anyway, appreciate you, Termy. Scott, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Scott Phillips, headmaster at Houston Academy in Dothan, Alabama. Todd, I spent 16 years at the Walker School.
Okay. Very
And
cool.
my brother teaches at Walton High School. And
Wow.
my mom lives near the corner of Kennesaw due west and Ackworth due west,
Oh, wow.
right up in your
I'm
neck of
sitting,
the
I'm
woods.
sitting a stone's throw from Ackworth due west right now.
Right, I know where you guys are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and I used to play a lot of bad golf at Cobblestone.
Sure.
So
Oh, wow. Very nice.
so I'm actually kind of from your neck of the woods. I went to Milton High School in Alpharetta. So
Oh, wow. I played some baseball there with my son.
all right, yeah. So anyway, this is my just finishing my 7th year at Houston Academy. I have 3 children, daughter that just graduated last year, who was sent back from New York with COVID. She didn't have COVID, but with her school shut down up there. She's been home. She's not happy. I have 2 sons, a rising senior and a rising 8th grader, and he's all 8th grade. He's all in on being a middle schooler. And anyway, we're in the latter stages of what we hope will be a $12 million campaign. We've raised 10.5 right now, and we're still very hopeful we'll get to 12. We're doing really a whole campus remodeling, building a performing arts center, doing right now we've broken ground, but I should have brought some snapshots for you, but they broke ground in April on remodeling our lower school. So total
How many
gutting.
students, Scott?
We have 704 students,
Okay.
3-year-old preschool through 12.
Okay, great. It's been a great campaign too, and great leadership from Scott and the campaign chair. The campaign chair is probably one of the best I've ever worked with in my 30 years. He is unbelievable.
Well, I am Jerry Reeder, and I'm at Whitesburg Christian Academy in Huntsville, Alabama, and I've just finished my 11th year here. That's hard to believe. We have done 2 campaigns. We're in the starting the last year of the giving phase of our last campaign. Our first campaign, we built a 28,000 square foot upper school building, and then kind of carried that over and added about 24 to 26,000 feet of modular space, mostly classrooms. And then our second campaign was we built a 34,000 square foot, we call it grammar school elementary building. We moved into that over the Christmas break. Actually, no, we moved into it over the weekend of whatever the holiday is in January. We moved into that building, got everybody resituated, and then went home under the governor's directive. And so this has been an incredibly difficult year for us in a lot of ways. Just moving into finishing a campaign, getting a building finished, moving into it. We had some staff problems mid-year, ended up hiring a new principal, upper school principal in January, got him here and on board, and then got shut down and went home. So this has just been a extremely difficult and stressful year. We have had 2 of our anchor staff members, a 4-time state winning track coach that left us to go back home to Iowa, to his home school up there. And then our award winning band director has left. So we're just in the middle of almost a tornado here, feeling of dealing with so much. But, our theme coming through this is that adversity makes you stronger. It makes you better. And so our goal is that we're going to be better in a lot of different ways. And we have found ourselves in a very unique situation, and that we're probably the only school in the state that has, we have 8 empty classrooms. Most of them are in our modular buildings, but we have developed a very bold plan. I have a major donor, and Cece and Jerry, y'all don't know about this, but he called me last week and we discussed our plans for fall. And I told him about an idea I had, and I said I would implement this in a heartbeat if I had the money. And I was thanking him because his donation allowed us to add a little bit of space to our elementary building, which created those empty classrooms. And so he had me to submit my crazy plan to him in writing, and then he called me and said, "You do what you need to do. I've got your back." And I'm like, wow, what a blessing that is. And basically what we're going to do is hire 7 additional teachers, and our largest classroom from TK through 8th grade this fall will have 17 students in it. And so we can meet spacing requirements. We can do everything that we need to do to put kids 6 feet apart if that's what we're asked to do, and so forth. Just all through the generosity of a person that had already made a major gift to a building. And so great story there that I won't take time to share, but things are rocking and rolling at Whitesburg.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Let's look at if you got those questions in front of you, Todd, and I'll start with you again. How has the virus affected your fundraising?
Well, we really have our annual fund in the fall, so we haven't seen any impact there. We did reduce our goal for the fall, just not knowing what will happen in the fall. So but we're planning on doing our annual fund in the fall just like normal. Again, we've reduced our goal. We haven't seen any real concerns with our collection of capital campaign pledges with the upper school building. We've had maybe a couple folks that have said they're not going to be able to follow through, but small type gifts. We usually have a benefit dinner that usually nets us about $175,000 to $200,000 that we have in the spring. We had to postpone that to August 15th. So we're sure hoping that we can still have that in August, because that's a big amount of money. We're going to use all of that money for FF&E for the new upper school building. So really at this point, what we've tried to do during this the last 9 or 10 weeks as we've been out of school is just really love on our donors. We haven't done a lot of asking. We've sent our regular reminders if they have a pledge, whether it's annual fund or capital campaign. But we've just tried to. We're doing tours right now of our upper school building for our donors. We're writing them personal notes. We're calling them. Just really more of a cultivation season for us. But practically speaking, we've reduced our annual fund goal for the fall, not knowing what'll come, and we've rescheduled our benefit dinner. But other than that, everything is pretty much going on as normal.
So people are not canceling pledges?
No, sir.
Yeah, that's good. Termy?
Ours is similar to what Todd said. We do our annual fund in the fall. We're going to do things a little differently with our annual fund this year. As I mentioned a minute ago, when I first got the MRA, they'd never had an annual fund. So we spent the first 5 years really preparing to do a capital campaign. Now we're coming out of the capital campaign, and what I want to do is increase our parent participation. So we're just really going to focus this fall on parent participation. We do it in the fall, like you do, Todd. We try to send that out by the end of August or before Labor Day. So this year's September is going to be all about parent participation, raising that level up to levels that we've never even had. Also, I'm looking for an alumni donor, a challenge donor, and a grandparent challenge donor. I'm going to try to find one of each of those, and hopefully a $50,000 challenge gift with each of those. So, this will be something, if we can find those and really, motivate our alums and our grandparents. That's what I'm trying to do to try to keep our annual fund levels, or even try to raise our annual fund levels. Now, we do have in the spring what we call our Gardens of Madison County. We had to cancel that event. We had sold a lot of corporate sponsorships for that, so it wasn't a total loss of funds because we're able to give a lot of advertising through that because we do a magazine with one of the local papers here. So we were able to continue to give those corporate sponsors that advertising that we had told them we would give them through the garden. So it wasn't a total loss. We normally net over 150,000, and this year we probably netted right about 100. So it was a loss, but not the total loss. And instead of trying to reschedule it, we're just going to move on, take the loss, and pick things back up this fall with our annual fund.
Great, great. Scott?
Well, yeah, we've been, we're continuing to, reach out to our donors. Obviously, we sent out letters, we've made phone calls, we've tried to keep as much on top of it as we can. It's interesting. In the last week, I've now had 3 people ask me about that were part of our feasibility study who hadn't been called yet, and they knew other people had, and they called me and said, hey, when are you guys going to come ask us for money? So I think people are, ready to get out and start. Well, people are ready to get out and start doing, but I think that there may be an opportunity for people to get out and start giving again. Our annual fund did take a hit this year, kind of for the same things Termy was talking about. We do use our we call it the party, but it's an auction and party, and we usually make about $70,000, between $60,000 and $70,000 on that, and then that rolls into our annual fund. So we did take a big hit on that. We kept some of our sponsors, but we probably didn't make about 50 grand that we were counting on. So we're way under on our annual giving.
When did you do that, Scott? When did you do that? When did you do that? When was that held?
No, we didn't have it.
Oh, you didn't have it.
No, we had to cancel it.
Okay.
So we lost all of that potential revenue is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So, but I mean, that's okay. We knew we were going to be, lower on our annual fund, and, we're still in fine shape budget wise and everything. We really weren't budgeting for the annual fund to be part of our operating that much. So, I feel very confident that we're still going to get, close to that $12 million number. We have some not major donors, but a lot of people who are in the 50 to maybe $50 to $100,000 range that I think we can still solicit and get close to that number. So
you have not been soliciting in the last several weeks, right?
We haven't, but I think I was talking to Kristen. We just had our graduation, which was a big ordeal. We did it in cars and blah, blah, blah. So, but anyway, but I told her I think it's time for us to start hitting the road again and getting some of these contact some of these people. So
yeah, I agree. I think it's time. Jerry?
Well, our story is pretty similar to everybody else's. We have not taken big hits as far as people just notifying us that they're not going to be able to meet their campaign pledge. And of course, we're in our last year of our giving phase, so we're holding our own. My biggest hit has been my development director resigned suddenly about 5-6 weeks ago. And so kind of left me hanging, and we've kind of been scurrying to cover some of the day-to-day duties, like sending out pledge reminders and thank you cards and all of that. Just kind of scurrying to keep the day-to-day things going that he was doing, and we have done that. And so as we move forward, our annual fund, we do not hammer our annual fund real heavily when we're in the giving phases of a capital campaign. But it is an ongoing thing. We don't have an event where we promote annual fund like a banquet or anything like that. We do not include our annual fund income in our budgeting for day-to-day operations. We usually point it at hard targets, like we might buy buses or smart boards or different things. We just give maybe 3 or 4 targets each year for our annual fund. And so that was an easy thing to do this year because we moved into a new building, and our annual fund bought smart boards and different things like that. So we do promote and have the annual fund, but we don't just really go out and try to do hard solicitations for annual fund. So we feel pretty good as far as where we are right now financially in every way. We had a very minimal number of families that lost income. Most of those were small business owners whose businesses had to close down. So we weren't hit hard in tuition payments. We weren't hit hard in lack of annual fund giving, and we weren't hit hard. I'm not saying there was absolutely no effect, but it was all things that we could absorb. And as far as our capital campaign giving, that has continued at a regular pace. We might have had 3 people that had small pledges that they were giving small amounts monthly that had to hold back. And all of them said, we're just delaying until the economy cranks back up. So who knows when that will be.
Well, that's what we would recommend, that when someone calls you and says, we want to cancel our pledge, then have a plan in place to say, we don't want you to cancel it, delay it, start it back up in 3 months, 6 months, whatever works for you financially.
Yeah.
We resist canceling pledges.
Well,
that's your last resort.
Yeah. We did that on every front, tuition and everything. We actually had a little, I don't guess you wouldn't call it an application form, but just a little form that if you need to delay your tuition or your annual fund or your any pledge or anything like that, fill this out, let us know. We won't send you any reminders until whenever you put on the form when you want to start receiving your reminders again. So we did that right out of the gate as soon as this hit, and we were actually pleasantly surprised at how few people asked for a delay. But we do have a very large number of professional people, parents whose income has not really been affected that much, and so we're very fortunate here. We're still in a strong financial position all across the board.
So you mentioned losing your development person. We've worked with all of your development people, and most of them have been there with you for a number of years. So is that an issue for any of you? The possibility of losing your development person, and if you do, what are your plans? Any thoughts along those lines, Todd?
No, we have ours is here, and I don't think she's going anywhere. So our staff is in good shape.
Yeah, Termy, same thing.
Same thing. Yeah, I'm real blessed. Got a great group, and everybody's coming back.
Right, Scott.
No, I mean, our advancement person has her kids in the school, or her husband's an alum. They're here. I imagine she's probably gonna die in her chair.
Count your blessings, guys.
Well,
Yeah. No, that's huge.
I'd rather die on the road.
Yeah. Would you? I don't know.
On your yacht.
Yeah, right.
I know we could all brag on our development person, but I will tell y'all that when Sissy was here, she had a little heart flare up, I suppose, and my development person grabbed her, put her in the car, took her to the hospital, and stayed with her for a couple of hours. But that's the way all development people are. They'll do whatever you ask them to do. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I thank her for that every day.
So what are your steps to, and we've sort of touched on this already, your steps to move forward? We're talking to schools. We have 6 feasibility studies that we're about to start. We're going to start back in March and April. Of course, they were all put on hold. We just got a new client that wants to start a feasibility study. This was Christian Academy of Knoxville, about 1,200 students, large school, and we're starting that feasibility study the middle of June. The other 6 schools are sort of pushing back a little bit, and they're wanting to wait until July, August, even September to get started. My feeling is it's not the headmasters or the head of schools that are pushing back. It's more the boards are sort of saying, "Hey, wait a minute, we don't have to do this right now," and I don't understand. They may not know what's out there. So Any thoughts along those lines? And when are you getting started back again? Sounds like all of you are in that mode to do that right away. Todd?
Yeah, I mean, the governor of Georgia has been great. Of course, I think we're out in front of the country right now, but he put out a nice list of guidelines for summer camps, and our task force went through those guidelines, and we opened camp yesterday. And we know he's going to put out guidelines for reopening school here within the next couple of weeks. So we'll follow the same plan. Our task force will evaluate those guidelines and get our plan together for opening school. We're kind of in a good spot when it comes to development because we're just focusing on collecting these pledges for the current building. We didn't include a lot of FF&E in our campaign because our goal was higher than anything we'd ever set. So we do have a game plan that we need to execute for FF&E for the new building. And then, like I said, we're going to kind of scale down our annual fund. My board's not real involved in the fundraising. They give me a lot of latitude, so I don't have any real board members pushing me or pulling me or holding me back. They kind of rely on me. So I think just with where our building is, we're not in a feasibility or capital campaign mode other than collecting these pledges. So for us, as we wrap up this campaign, we were going to probably take a 6-month break before our next feasibility study. So I think it'll lay out nicely for us.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Termy?
Well, our board is really not involved in the fundraising like Todd said, but that is one thing I want to try to get a little bit more interest from them and help from them this summer in getting ready to kick off this annual fund that I talked about a few minutes ago and getting our parent participation level up a great deal. So I'm wanting to get our board. We do have a development committee of the board. I want to get them working a little harder this year, as well as our parents association. I want to get them involved more in our annual fund, and I think that'll be real critical in us improving percentage of parental participation. But that's going to be my focus this summer, to get that board development committee more involved and to get our parents association more involved, preparing for the annual fund this fall and preparing to try to increase the amount of parent participation in the annual fund this year.
Termy, you indicated a while ago that they'd never done a campaign there. And I remember meeting your board and presenting to your board, and they were reluctant. This was several years ago. They were reluctant to go out and raise private support. What's their attitude now?
Well, they're very pleased with what we did, Jerry, and they're very pleased to look at the impact it has made upon our facilities. And it's just raised the whole level of everything here in our whole campus, the whole MRA family. So they're much more excited about fundraising now than they were.
I would hope so. Scott, what about your board?
Well, I mean, I couldn't ask for much more. I mean,
I agree.
It's not just for those of you, we have our campaign chairman, Reed Dove. Not only did he step up and give $3 million, he and his family, I should clarify, it's from he and his family, but he has gone out himself and he has relationships, close relationships with many of the people in our community who have potential for large donations. And he has gone out and basically said, I'm doing this, you need to do this too. And so that really has been, the backbone of our campaign. It's been Reed Dove. But also Charles Bunton, who's our co-chair, and a lot of our board members, they don't have, I'm not saying we have an 18-member board, which is large, but I'd say of those 18, we've got about half of them that will go out and solicit. So, and in a direct and I guess, for lack of a better term, aggressive way. So that's been fantastic. I was like Termy, we didn't have an annual fund even to speak of when I got here. We didn't have a professional advancement person. We didn't have an advancement person at all. We had a person who collected checks, but that was about it. So, I think really overall, our board has been, I've brought in a lot of professional development. It was my idea to bring in the Smith Group at Termy's recommendation, by the way. I don't know if you got a finder's fee or what you guys have done for him.
From what I understand, I get 10% of that 10 million, Scott. That's what I thought.
Checks in the mail.
just Jerry, just keep in mind, Termy was the one that told me to come to you guys. So,
I
again,
understand.
that's at least good for a round of golf or something.
At least.
Maybe
Yeah,
a sandwich. But
Right.
we're actually, it's interesting. I was down at I was at the convention for the Alabama and Mississippi associations, and I talked to like 20 people, and they all said J.F. Smith. So anyway, the board has been, I think we've done a good job on our leadership team, because I've hired some people who had some experience being heads of school and things like that on getting one. We've made bringing people onto the board. One of the things that we want is someone who has a commitment to fundraising and a commitment personally too to giving money. When I got here, we had board members who were giving like $200 a year, and we had teachers giving a lot more than that. So that has all changed. So like really in the last 7-8 years, I really couldn't ask for better leadership from our board and involvement.
You
And
do have
Scott,
an
your
outstanding
board, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sissy.
No, I was just going to say, Scott, and I'll mention something about his board. A number of them, and I don't know exact number, but a number of them gave 6 figures or above.
Well, when we just before we even moved into sort of going out and asking, I think I'm correct about this, Sissy, I think we were close to 5 million. Just so when J.F. Smith came in and did their feasibility study, I think you guys said like 5.7 or something like that was our number. 5.2. And so, we almost got there just with our board.
Right. No,
Let me interject. If I could just interject real quick, like we're talking about my board, and my board has changed dramatically in the last 5 or 6 years. And I think there's 3 reasons for it. Number one, the capital campaign, we already mentioned that. Number 2, I've had great board leadership the last 5 years. I had one gentleman for 2 years and then the one for 3, and he's just going off, but I've had great leadership. But the third thing was that our self-study that we did 5-6 years ago, and the SAIS visiting team came in that Scott led, and Scott and his team made several recommendations to our board of changes that needed to be made. And Scott, we've completed that this year. We've changed our bylaws. We've changed the way we bring people onto the board. So a shout out to Scott for a great job they did there. But my board is much more in line with what an independent school board should be today than it was 5 or 6 years ago, for those different reasons.
Well, and y'all, I don't know how well y'all know Termy, but we're not going to, but I've done, I've chaired probably 30 accreditation teams, something like that. His board was the most difficult board I've ever encountered. So, I'm just telling you, I don't know how many I've served on otherwise. They were difficult. They had no idea what they had in Termy. They didn't know what they were doing. They were clueless. And for him to turn that around in this short period of time is remarkable. I was kind of thinking, I thought, well, this is either going to go really well for Termy or it's going to go really badly.
Well, with those three things, plus I've got great people here that I work with. We've been at our boards 180 degrees, Scott, one side to the other.
Yeah. Everybody walked out of those meetings in our committee going, holy moly.
I had some of those same thoughts when I left that board meeting too.
Yeah.
So let me go back to what you said about your board and the leadership of the board and Reed, who's the campaign chair. This is really an unusual situation because, as you know, our philosophy has been we're very hands-on, and we have found that most volunteers would rather do anything than ask for money. And so in this case, I had a couple of meetings with Reed, who's the chairman of the campaign, and he said, Jerry, I know these people really well, and I don't have a problem going and talking to them. And so he was willing to make a commitment, and I went with him. I went with him on a couple of meetings, and so we went through our little way we go about it. But he was good because he did say, look, I've done this amount, and I'd like for you to do them. So it was a very effective approach. And, I would say he was outstanding in the way he went about this. And he's certainly a key to the reason you're 10.2 wherever you are right now. So, Jerry, what about, you don't really have a board, do you?
I was wondering if you were going to say that. We are legally organized as a church school under Whitesburg Baptist Church, which means that I am governed by a committee rather than a board that is all church members. So from my parent base, we have to find different ways to give them representation or give them a voice. I will say to you guys that there's both advantages and disadvantages to being a church school. We enjoy a lot of legal protection in certain areas, being a Christian school. Our committee has a system of we call policy governance. And basically my committee sets policy and then they go home. They are not involved in any way in the day-to-day operation of the school. And so that's a two-edged sword. If you've got a great board like some of you have, it's a great asset. But if you have a bad board, it's a terrible thing. And so I'm kind of in that no man's land. The other side of that sword is it's kind of all on the head of school or all on the headmaster to make things happen. And we've been fortunate here that we've had some great parent leadership on our committees and teams. That was one of the things I loved about the way Jerry and his organization came into us the first time. I'm in a very young school. We've only graduated 11 classes. And that's counting the one this year that we haven't really graduated yet. Our graduation is the last Sunday in June. But we're a very young school, and we have a lot of professional people in our parent base that make good incomes, but it's not old money, it's new money. And so everybody can afford to come to our school, but beyond that, I don't have a large number of parents that can make $1 million gifts. I have some grandparents that can and have. So we're a little bit different here. And I know every school is different. Everybody's got your unique situation that you have to deal with. And whatever your unique situation is, it has advantages and disadvantages. So we do rely a lot on our committees that the Smith Group said form all these committees, and then the heads of each of those committees kind of is your driving force at our school as far as our capital campaigns. I actually felt like, and Cece and Jerry may want to chime in on this, I felt like our first campaign, we had a little bit better, stronger leadership from our committees and our heads of all of those committees than we did this second time. So when I started to say if, but I'll say when we do another campaign, I'm going to focus a little bit more on getting the right people on those teams. And yeah, our situation is quite a bit different here. Our board is not involved in fundraising pretty much at all.
And Jerry, you had a lot of new families into your school. I don't know if you've touched on enrollment, but well, talk a little bit about how that's gone.
That's another unique aspect of our school is I've been here 11 years. The first 5 to 6 years of that, we were growing by 12 to 15 net students a year, which is very consistent. It's very you can deal with that. And when we opened our first new building and added the modulars, we've grown by an average of almost 50 students a year for 5 straight years. And we're at about 560 now. And that kind of growth is a challenge. You feel like you're a cat chasing your tail again, a lot of times just trying to keep up. And so we've worked real hard the last 2 years to get ahead of our growth. And so we've done that with the second new building that we built. We had planned when we built that second building to move all those modulars out. But I decided immediately that year, no, we're not moving any modulars, and we're growing back into those buildings. And we're already, our big bottleneck right now, we need a competition gym. That's going to be our next project. And so we kept the modular buildings in place. But our growth has been unusual. and phenomenal. And we've really had to struggle just to keep up with that. So yes, we've involved a lot of new families, and we will continue to do so. One of the things that we have not done a good job with is soliciting those new families. And that was a thing that I was really on my development director about the last year, is we've got to set up and start soliciting these new families, either for annual fun or even for the campaign. And then now, of course, maybe I was on him too hard because he's gone. But anyway, we're kind of in a little bit of a no man's land, but you know, we've never faced a challenge here at the academy that God hadn't come through and provided what we need. And so I actually, just before I ran down and jumped on this meeting, I was a minute or two late. We just hired, our development director was doing development and marketing, and that was a bad idea. And that didn't work out real well because it just gave him too much to do. And so we
And
have
he's your
hired
coach.
Pardon?
He's your coach.
And he was our head basketball coach. So we just hired a marketing director. We had a mom in the school who had a degree in marketing, and she had worked in advertising and marketing for major corporations for 17 years, became a stay-at-home mom. All of her kids are in school now, so she's ready to go back to work. So we just hired her, and we were meeting this morning, dreaming dreams about how we're going to market and develop our school in the future. And then we're going to be looking for a development director. I've kind of dispersed all of those day-to-day responsibilities that he had to other staff people. And Cece will tell you that I tend to overwork people. We don't ever sit around trying to find something to do. We work hard, and we're very busy here. And so I put a little bit more on a few people, and they're responding, and they're taking care of the day-to-day things. But we're going to be looking for somebody to come in hopefully by this fall.
So, you know, all of you are at the end of a campaign, and that's not the end, that's just the beginning. And you've heard me talk before, you know, that you've now got to do stewardship. You got to maintain those relationships, especially if you want to secure that next gift or that second gift from those individuals. And so I would really look at your donor base, and I would look at those individuals that made gifts. You know, we can certainly do additional screening. So there could be someone who gave you a $5,000 gift that has a capability of $50,000 or $100,000. You know, so those are the kind of people that, you know, maybe you need to spend a little bit more time with that have that high capability when the inclination was not there during the campaign. So I can't stress enough on the fact that you got to do stewardship. And I talk about it all the time. And we talked about the fact that you need to touch people 7 times or 5 to 7 times during the year. I mean, touch them. You've got to contact them. That's why those positions of development are so important to you. You know, you got to be talking to people. You got to, if you don't communicate with them. I mean, there's 1.4 million nonprofit organizations out there. They're growing by 30 to 40,000 per year. Everybody's got their hand out. Everybody's looking for that charitable dollar. If you're not cultivating those relationships that you have, then they're going to find somewhere else to give their money. And so, you know, again, we think that you've got to, currently your parent base is where you want to continue to build that relationships, but your grandparents are also very important. I mean, I'd go back, I know each one of you had gifts from grandparents, but grandparents are a great source. So again, I can't stress enough that you have to put a plan in place now when your campaign ends about what is my plan for the next 6, 12 months in terms of stewardship. How am I going to steward these gifts? How am I going to thank people for what they've done? Because it will mean a lot to you when you do that next campaign, whenever that campaign is. So are there any issues that we haven't talked about that you'd like to get some feedback from this group? Todd, anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to see us talk about?
No, I mean, we're just pretty much consumed here with how we get school started. So that's just all we're really focusing on is, you know, just figuring out all the ins and outs of getting things rolling again. So not really, not that we haven't already discussed.
Right.
You know,
okay.
Todd, I think that, you know, like for probably you're like, well, all of us, I don't know that other than, reaching out to people, and we did the letters and talked, I tried to talk to people, but to our donors, but this whole distance learning thing has been so all consuming.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it is so much more time consuming and so much more difficult on our teachers and our families and everything. And I spent a lot of time, dealing with situations where, people were stressed, or I had teachers that were, I mean, it just, sometimes I turned into a counselor. I mean, it's just been, so I don't even know that even if we had wanted to or been able to continue our fundraising, I don't know where we would have found the time of the day, with this constantly moving situation. I feel like now that we're past graduation, and I know, that I finally feel like I can breathe.
Yeah. Yeah, I told my wife, I don't know this is going to be a very enjoyable summer, just because your mind is going to be so occupied with what is tomorrow. I mean, the dilemma is we just don't know what the future holds. And so hopefully we'll get back to some level of normalcy. I will say this. I don't know that the average citizen in the country realizes the toll virtual learning took on teachers. It was it's a big toll. I saw a news article yesterday that 1 in 5 teachers have said they're not sure they're going to return to the classroom in the fall. For lots of different reasons, and so that's a huge number. And we're I don't know if you guys are familiar with there's a part of the CARES Act that's called ESSER. ESS is a regular program for federal title money every year, but they've got this emergency relief component to it. Every state gets a certain block of money, and we don't know what our Georgia student allotment is as of yet. It should come out here in the next day or so, but we're looking to get cameras installed in every single classroom, so that if we have to go live, if we have to go virtual, we're going to basically tell the parents that are either A, uncomfortable bringing their kids to school if we start normal, or B, if we have to pivot to virtual school, we're going to basically say, hey, here's the bell schedule, and we're not going to ask our teachers to do traditional and virtual. They don't have the bandwidth for it. So if you want to be a part of our school, here's the bell schedule. You need to tap in live, and that's going to be your only hope to have school if you choose to be virtual or if we have to go virtual. So at the same time, I think we're going to look to, if we go virtual in any portion of next year, we're going to probably bring our preschool 3-year-olds through kindergarten to campus, divide them in half, and do social distancing. But anyway, we don't want to get into a whole task force discussion, but I think it's safe to say every head of school in the country right now is being consumed with what do we need to do to prepare for the fall.
Hey, Todd, I'd like to touch base with you too after this and see what you guys are doing. I'd love to tap your brain. We're getting ready to, yeah.
That'd be great.
I will echo exactly what he just said. We have absolutely, for the last 9-10 weeks, been consumed with dealing with distance learning and helping our teachers. It's been the most stressful time. I do have an amazing staff from top to bottom here, and they performed very, very well and did a great job, but it was stressful. And one of the things that we didn't realize till we were 4 weeks in, we have a number of students that were kind of, they have professional parents, they're high achievers, they were perfectionists, they're the kids that always want to make 100. And so if they missed an assignment and a 0 popped up, they just freaked out. We didn't realize how stressful it was on especially our high school students until we were 3-4 weeks in, and we started having to try to deal with that. So this has been an all-consuming situation for us. And Jerry, not meaning to minimalize what you're saying, we recognize the importance. That's the reason it was stressful for me when I lost my development director, because I was depending on him to keep the day-to-day things rolling in our development and in the giving phase of our campaign and all of that. So that just added to my stress load and added to, because the way I relieve my stress load is I dump it on other people. And so when I did that, that created some more stress. And so this has been a time we'll talk about for the rest of our lives. My favorite new phrase is, we're going to live through this if it kills us. And, So we're going to get through it, and I do think we'll be stronger and better. And Jerry, I think that this is an opportunity for us and for your organization to learn some things about how we can do normal better. And when and if we ever get back to normal, I think we're going to be able to do normal better. We are dealing with the same challenge that Todd talked about. We have had parents say, well, I might just choose to keep my child at home, even if you're having face-to-face classroom instruction, and the teacher can do virtual learning both. Well, teachers can't do both. That's just an unrealistic expectation. So I think we're all dealing with the same situations, and I really have appreciated this opportunity to learn a little bit from you guys.
Sure, yeah. Well, we're all, we're doing a lot of webinars and planning for the future. We've developed 3 plans, the green, the yellow, and the red plan. I'm sure y'all heard and talked about those to different certain levels. And we're just putting all the details, crossing the T's and dotting the I's on what that's going to look like. But we feel pretty good about what we're going to do future. The red plan is distance learning. We're not planning on doing distance learning unless they absolutely say we got to go back to that. Our kindergarten and elementary parents can't do it again.
No.
We plan on being open for kindergarten through elementary come hell or high water. And if we have to, we'll take middle school and high school, rotate days, half morning, half afternoon, et cetera. But which all of you are nodding your heads. And it's like Jerry said, we're all right in the middle of basically the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate the job that you're doing. And, I guess what I'm saying is that your mission has not changed. Your mission is still there. And fulfill your mission, you're going to have private support. And so, I'm saying to you, and I think I'm hearing it from each one of you, that money is out there for you. And you just have to work through that and work through all the issues that we have with this COVID-19, and it will pass. So I appreciate all of you being on this call this morning. We're going to take this, and we've recorded it, so we'll send you a copy of it, and we may distribute that out to others so that they can learn from some of the things that you're doing, some of the positive things that you're doing. So any final words?
Well, I know everybody's busy, and we've been inundated with webinar opportunities, but I think if your organization wanted to kind of be a conduit, I think if you had a couple of these Zoom sessions just to offer heads of school an opportunity to talk about planning for the fall, one of the benefits to your organization is you're very Southeast U.S. focused, and I think that probably the Southeast part of the country is going to lead the country in reopening our schools. But I just think exchanging ideas is invaluable, especially in relationship to COVID and reopening. And, for us, I'm sure it's very similar for you guys. We had a kind of an uncanny sense of community emerge during the absence of not being together because of what we were able to create online. And I kind of feel this pent up generosity that may come our way because people have this sense that it has been a struggle for nonprofits. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we can pull out of this and start school traditionally in the fall if we all don't see some generosity that blows us away.
Awesome.
I agree.
Hey, thank y'all for putting this on, Jerry, you and Sissy.
Appreciate it.
Steve Jankowicz, I'm sure Steve was the guy that made this thing work.
Oh, yeah, we couldn't do without him. Sissy, you have any final comments?
I just want to say what I'm hearing, and I'm talking to individuals out there too, that, there is a lot of discussion about teachers and the work they're doing, just, front lines. And so I would say, and Jerry has said this many, many times over the years, when you start your next fundraising endeavor, I know you're concluding the one you're in, people love to help teachers. Always. So maybe thinking about including something like that in your next project listing, and how we can help teachers in this. And I think that's what I've learned coming out of COVID. And so that's my final comment.
So let me just say that we're here for you. And, if there's anything we can do, we're certainly willing to do that. So just let us know. when you're ready to move forward in any fundraising endeavor, we'll certainly be there to try to help you. But in between time, we're here for you. So don't hesitate to call us, and we'll certainly do whatever we can to help you. But thank each of you, Todd, Termy, Scott, Jerry, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. We appreciate it. Appreciate you, each one of you, and the job that you're doing. It's remarkable. So thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, guys.
Y'all have a
Thank
good
you
day.
all.
Guys.
Thank you.
Have a great
Jerry.
summer.
Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.